Mental health is one of the most significant challenges of our time, and not just the young people, but across every age group in Australia and beyond. And the data is sobering. Up to 45% of Australian adults will experience a mental health disorder at some point in their life, and 1 in 5 experience one each year. It is also the leading cause of disease burden after cancer and the leading cause of death for Australians aged between 15 and 45, and that's suicide. This is not a marginalised issue. It touches families, workplaces, schools and churches across the world. And I'm excited because I have a special guest with me, Margaret, who is actually one of our counsellors here at CityLife Community Care. So we're just going to have a conversation around mental health, and we hope that this is engaging for you guys. We hope that you guys get something out of it, that you're equipped and that you're inspired, and it brings a bit of hope and a bit of life as well to anybody's situation. So again, we just acknowledge that it's Are You OK Day today in Australia, and Are You OK Day is an initiative that encourages people to ask the question, are you okay? And I've got a t-shirt and it says, conversation could change our life. And really, it's about trying to equip everybody, whether or not you are somebody who is currently suffering with a mental health a challenge, or someone who is supporting somebody, or somebody who has no idea about this area. It's helping equip us to say, hey, if there is someone in our life, how can we ask the question, are you okay? And what steps can we take? And so this is all about listening without judgment. And so I just want to ask you first, Margaret, what difference does it make to somebody asking the simple question of, are you okay? Does that really make a difference?
I think it can do.
Yeah.
I think when you're not okay, it's very easy to become very isolated and insular, and you don't really want to risk talking to anyone. Obviously, you've been hurt by life in some way. It can be a grief that you're going through following bad circumstances, or it can be a depression. It can come from a lot of different places. Sometimes it's socially triggered, or circumstances have triggered it, a death in the family or something. So I think it is important to ask, are you okay? And it gives people permission to not be okay.
Yeah.
And what's even more important is the response you give them. Don't give advice. Mm-hmm. Tell people they should be okay. It's even okay if you're concerned that someone might be thinking of suicide. It's okay to use the word.
Yeah.
If someone is thinking about it, it can actually release them to talk about it.
Yeah.
And if they're not, then it's easy to say, well, no, it's not that bad, or, well, I wouldn't do that. I think it's good to get a conversation started.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes people think, I don't want to ask somebody because I don't want to pry, or maybe it's personal, or I feel a bit uncomfortable. But sort of studies show that it is actually a good thing to do, because it helps also break stigma around mental health and sort of opening up that conversation. Would you say that helps break stigma down? Or
I think it does. And I think it's important who's asking you.
Yes.
It's a good friend who's cared for you. If it's someone who's giving you advice, you might not want to confide in them.
Yeah.
I think if you ask and someone says, yeah, I'm okay, you can kind of leave it at that. If people want to open up, then you can follow it through with more questions, because it's not about prying and poking and making people talk about something they don't want to. You may not be a person they want to talk to about it, but it can be worth saying, well, if you're not, there are people who can help, and leave it at that.
Yeah.
I don't like, even in counselling, I don't like forcing people into a corner and asking prying questions. I'll throw a comment out and see whether they want to pick it up and run with it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the beauty of Are You OK Day is that they actually give you 4 different steps, and the steps are quite easy. So anyone can do them, and they don't feel like they have to have the right answers or all the right words, but it's just really asking, are you okay? And having that permission to say, actually, no, I'm not. But then listening without judgment. So again, it's what you were talking about, not having to have all the right answers. But then the next step 3 is encourage action. So because most people, you're a trained counsellor, I'm not a trained counsellor, but most of us won't be. But we actually don't need to have the answers. We just need to point people in a direction to say, hey, this is where to get help. And then the 4th one is sometimes we forget, and that's 4th is to check in, to say, hey, now that we've asked them, we've listened to them, we've encouraged them to get to seek action, making sure we're following up and seeing how they're going. And I think that's really something that everyone can do, whether or not you're a trained counsellor or you hold it in these
As a
areas.
counsellor, wisdom isn't having all the answers. Wisdom is asking the right questions.
Yeah.
And helping people to find what's going to help them.
Yeah.
Because we're all different, and what helps one person may not be the right thing for another.
Yeah.
And I mean, people are depressed. It can be hard to trust people.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a sense of betrayal, and it can be easier to stay in that dark hole than to risk trusting anyone.
Yeah.
And we just have to have our own journey through that.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage even for people to come to counselling and say I'm not okay, because they don't know what they're going to get.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of my hearts for our church, CityLife Church and CityLife Community Care, is that we'll always be a safe place, and we're going to continue to maintain a safe place for people who are struggling, whether it's with a mental health challenge or anything else, to say, hey, we're actually going to listen right now and without judgment, and also encourage you, to take action.
Yes.
But making sure that we're creating a safe space where people can feel like they can share, and that they can actually open up and they can get help without judgment and without being criticised, and without stigma. And I think that's something that's really quite challenging, though. How common would you say that mental health conditions are in our area, or things that you sort of come across?
Look, most of us will go through something in our life that could be termed a mental health condition. Most of those are what I think of more as emotional health, depression, anxiety, an eating disorder. Then there are the things like schizophrenia or personality disorders that need a psychologist or maybe a diagnosis or maybe medication. There's a whole range of things that people experience. And many of them, people will just go on with their lives. More of those are running parallel.
Yeah.
For many people, it's not necessarily debilitating, but when it is, I think we need that supportive community around us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I think in the past, a lot of people have come in, they've been hurting churches. They've been hit over the head with a Bible verse. I know I was when I left an abusive marriage after 20 years. Our first experience in a church was the pastor saying, well, the Bible says a woman shouldn't separate from her husband.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah.
So, I've had to crawl back from, had to work my way through a lot of stuff, which kind of led me on the counselling journey, I guess.
And I think that's what makes me really passionate to say, I don't want to hear these stories anymore. I don't want to hear how, and I don't think it's just churches. I think it's in society in general as well. I mean, we have different
one-line solutions. Yeah.
Yeah, and we all come with bias. Like, we might have a cultural background that says that's not a thing. I was watching a TV show, and they were joking around about how Western, counselling doesn't work on Eastern minds, and I was just laughing because I'm from a Japanese background, and I'm like, we joke around, and it was on a TV show, but sometimes our cultural background does come into play that says actually that's a weakness, or hey, that's shame, or you can't feel like that. So and I just think, how can we as society move from that to a place where actually we're acknowledging these things, we're sensitive to these things, and we're encouraging people to get help, because mental health is things that a lot of people are suffering from. They suffer in silence, and we don't want to see our young people or anyone even take their lives, because it's not. We've got to change our mindset. But
we've all grown up in a culture, even our own individual family culture is different from next door's culture. And in a collectivist culture, the first thing that matters is what the community thinks.
Yeah.
Then it might be the family, then it's the individual. In this culture I've grown up in, it's the individual, then the family, then the culture.
Yeah.
So just understanding that.
Yeah.
Again, it comes back to not having all the answers, but having the right questions. So you can ask someone, so in your culture, what does this mean? Who are your support people?
Yeah.
How does this normally dealt with? What do you find helpful? That's where the right questions are far more important than having all the answers.
Yes, yeah.
It's not maths.
Yeah, yeah.
There aren't right answers necessarily.
Yeah.
But there are certainly harmful things that we can say to people.
Yeah.
And that's what we really want to avoid. And just being there for people. We can't fix most things. Someone's had a death in the family. I can't fix that. But we can walk alongside people and give them permission to grieve in the way that is going to help them best.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think that you touched on it before. There's a sort of a difference, I think, between someone going through like a season of depression where it does stem from something like a traumatic event or grief. And then there's also people who would have maybe like a clinical depression that is neurological, a chemical imbalance and that kind of thing. And sometimes they are sort of lobbed into the same sort of category. And do you think that also plays into this, I think, sometimes stigma against people not wanting to say, hey, I'm struggling maybe with a bit of depression because people have got, like, there's a stigma?
I think there is. Shame is a big issue.
Yeah, shame, yeah.
And one of the things shame does, it makes us want to hide.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to come out and say this is me because we're concerned about that looking bad.
Yeah.
Whether it's because of a particular culture and attitude, whether because of the attitude of people around us. You know, if people have only ever had a bad day, they're not going to understand depression. They're not going to understand you can't just go out and have a game of tennis and get over it.
Yeah.
Same with anxiety. You know, people will quote things sometimes with anxiety, not understanding the difference between having a choice of to worry about something or not worry about it and actually having a somatic anxiety that's within your body.
Yeah.
And your stress level is already at 8 out of 10. Or if theirs is at 2 out of 10, what works for them may not work for you.
Yeah.
So I think just understanding mental health and all the different aspects of mental health is important if you're going to go giving any sort of advice. And even as a counsellor, I very rarely give advice. It's more about asking the right questions.
Yeah.
And having tools and being able to explain things to people that might help them to cope.
Because I know I worked with young people for over 2 decades and having a lot of conversations with parents because their young person has said, you know, I'm suffering from a bit of depression or anxiety, but to the point where it was actually affecting their schooling, it's affecting their day-to-day living, and well-meaning parents, you know, saying to me, oh, they don't have anything to be depressed about, or they don't have anything to be anxious about. And no, they're just being silly, or they're just being, you know, teenagers. And I just thought if I could say anything to parents is to say, make sure we take this seriously.
I think we need to understand that adolescence is a really messy time.
Yes, yeah.
You know, there's the emotional life and the mental life and the physical life, and we're just all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, and the statistics actually show that, you know, mental health is one of the greatest concerns of young people as well. And I know, if I care about someone's young person, how much more their parents love them and care for them and value them. It's just having this sort of barrier of understanding. Sometimes you think, well, if they haven't, you know, had a traumatic experience or there's nothing to be anxious about, to say, actually, no, they don't necessarily need to have like a big traumatic event or a loss or a grief to actually be experiencing anxiety and depression. Sometimes those things can be chemical imbalances. Sometimes those things can be, environmental, personality. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I sometimes think when I see people with anxiety, when I talk about the first time they noticed it, sometimes it was in prep.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, we send 4 and 5-year-olds, and some of them are introverts, off to spend a whole day in a room full of 4-year-olds. I wouldn't cope well being in a room full of 4-year-olds all day, but we expect a 4-year-old to cope with that.
Yeah.
And then if someone beats them up, we kind of wipe them off and send them back the next day. And if I was beaten up at work, and police would be called, I'd be given counselling and time off, but a 4-year-old, off you go. So I sometimes think, we underestimate the stress that kids go through. And if you've had years of not being very popular at school, that anxiety by the time you're an adolescent can be quite debilitating.
Yes.
And sometimes things build up and build up and build up, and then there's a day where they just manifest and no one knows what happened, including the person it happened to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a complex issue.
Yeah. And if there's parents out there listening, I just want to encourage you that there's no shame attached to a young person experiencing like depression or anxiety or any other mental health condition or challenge. Seek help because, it is the
body in our brain tells that something needs attention.
Yeah.
And, we have a broken arm or a broken heart. We can have a broken emotions too, I think.
Absolutely. And we don't think twice if we have a broken arm to go to a doctor. But sometimes if we are not feeling well in our own minds, we sometimes will go, oh, kind of put that off or not go at all. Yeah. So trying to break down that stigma.
And it all had elements of it. You know, we all have little anxieties. We all have little coping mechanisms and soothing strategies. You know, a baby has a dunny and, you know, some of us we'll play a card game or we'll go and eat something we don't need. We'll have little strategy. When it gets to the point where it maybe would become an alcoholic, then we realise something's up.
Yeah.
But we all have little things we do and we all procrastinate about certain areas of life or certain things we don't want to do. And that's all very normal. So when things get to that point where we're quite debilitated, we can get some help for that.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's not whether you've got a mental illness or not, it's just by degrees. I think we're all somewhere on the spectrum of everything.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we're all a little bit, you know, on the scale of 0 to 10.
Yeah.
I could say my anxiety now is about a 2, and that's probably about a normal level when I'm doing something and focused.
Yeah.
But, you know, I might go up to 7 or 8 at some stage of the day. It's just being aware, I think, that we're all somewhere on a spectrum. We're all going to have bad days. When you notice that something's really becoming an issue and really impacting your life, there might be time to go and get some help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And can I ask just like a personal question? Have you ever, or you yourself or someone close to you, ever walked through a mental health struggle? And if you did, like, how did a faith community or any other community, how did that play a role in that journey for good or for worse?
Yes. Well, I mentioned before when I left a 20-year abusive marriage, also with my children, my home, I was retrenched and lost a brother-in-law to AIDS all in the space of about 4 months. So it was heavy.
Yeah.
That's when I was sort of hit with that burst. But at the same time, in that same church, there was a community of women that I joined, and that was tremendously supportive and helpful at the time.
Yeah.
There was also a group of parents at the nearby school who were really supportive as well. I had family who were supportive. So, yes, that did make a big difference. I still had to walk through it for quite a long time, but it really made a difference having support.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that sometimes will stop people or be a barrier for people to be able to share is they don't want everyone to know their business, but we don't actually need everyone to know our business.
No, we don't need everyone to know. At least one person we can tell pretty much anything to.
Exactly.
A few people we can tell most things to.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good guideline. And I think in terms of a triangle with depression, I was never diagnosed with depression, but looking back and having learned about the you know, to recognise the symptoms, I know that I was depressed at the time, but it was really a grief process. And at the time I was going out ball and dancing, something I'd always wanted to do, and my ex-husband had never wanted to, so I found out you can go without a partner to a class.
Oh, wow.
So I started doing that, and that took my mind off things for a few hours a week. I also did some lifeline training at the time, to get telephone counselling. So that was, you know, doing something for other people that was helpful, took my mind off my own stuff when I saw people struggling with schizophrenia or something and just long-term struggles. I thought, I'm lucky, you know. It made me see things in a better light. And then hours of journaling a day, just processing everything that I was going through. So I think there's kind of a triangle. If all you do is enjoy yourself and have fun, you become a bit hedonistic, that's not going to heal you. And if all you do is look after other people, you'll burn out. And if all you do is wallow in the sadness, that doesn't get you well. But I think having a balance of those things, gradually you can get well. It won't happen tomorrow or next week, but over time, if you keep doing those things and have a supportive community around you, you can get recovery.
Yeah. I think that's great. In statistics show, this is from Beyond Blue, and it's from just a couple of years ago, but it's the most updated on their website at the moment. Around 3.4 million people in Australia live with an anxiety condition. And then
It's more than.
I was going to say, I reckon this is diagnosed. It would probably be a diagnosed. I'm guessing that it's going to be a diagnosed because otherwise, how do we count the people who haven't been?
Stressful.
It is very stressful. And then around 1.5 million people in Australia live with a mood condition, including depression. So sometimes that is ongoing. And we talked about how, and you shared so vulnerably about suffering from what you would look back on and say that was depression. There are some people who will go in long bouts of depression, and something that they will battle with long term. And sometimes there is a stigma even around getting medication to aid with this. What would you say to someone who's struggling to get help and struggling with the thought of getting professional help and medication for something that's a bit more long term?
Yeah, look, I always think medication's a choice for people. It's an option. It's not the only option. And a lot of us don't want to take medication if we see an alternative. And I think that's worth exploring. I think if people don't want to take medication, no one can force them to anyway. They can get a prescription and they can have a think about whether they want to try that or not. There's a lot of mixed experiences with medications, but there are other things you can try.
Yeah.
And if you try those and they don't help, then you might want to move on to medication. I know people who've tried medication for a few months just to enable them to get out of bed and start doing the work they need to do to get through it, and they've got through it. Others get on medication, have a real struggle getting off it, and others manage to get through. I mean, I never had a diagnosis at the time and I just worked my way through it. I wouldn't have wanted medication anyway because grief is a real part of life. It doesn't really need to be medicated, but you can have a toothache. You can choose whether or not to take medication. You go and get it dealt with, but whether or not you take medication, I think it's a personal choice.
Yeah.
Doctors only get about 15 minutes with someone, so often medication is offered because they don't have all the other options of all the different therapies and the time to do them. So that's fair enough.
Yeah.
And, people have that choice. And some find it helpful. For some people, I think it's essential. And for some people, there is, as you said, a long-term, I've known people who have continued the challenges with long seasons of depression, and they generally did need medication. And look, it's something that I think years and years of trauma in childhood can leave you with some depleted hormones that maybe require that level of support. Because, we have chemical imbalances sometimes that need to be chemically balanced.
Yeah.
Like a one-size-fits-all.
Statistics of just so many people who are suffering, and it's good that people are reaching out more and more these days. But still in Australia, we have 9 people who die by suicide every single day. And 7 of them are actually men. And do you think there's any reason why, and this is probably this would be anecdotal as well, that men are especially at risk, and what we could do as a community, a church community or any other community can do to support men?
Yes, I think men are particularly vulnerable because they're encouraged to be manly and tough and don't cry like a girl and so forth. You still see that even in this feminist age. You still see males being raised to, and they're expected to be tough and they're expected to behave differently. And it's not necessarily healthy. I was really proud of the Geelong player who came out and said he'd spent some months getting mental health support, and he's such a brilliant player. Yeah, that was a great example that you can be a young man and very tough and courageous.
Yeah.
And admit that at times you need help. No, because
it's not actually
on your own,
and it's not a sign of weakness. No. I think going, hey, I've got a broken arm, I need to go fix that. It's actually a sign of strength.
Well, it takes courage to go and ask for help.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something younger men are more and more inclined, I think, to acknowledge that this is a normal thing and they need help.
Yeah.
But shame is a big issue for men that it hasn't been well addressed by society. As I say, it causes us to want to hide.
Yeah. Because seeing those statistics that young women are actually more likely to experience a mental health condition than younger men, than young men, but out of the 9 people who die by suicide, 7 of them are males. That's that very disproportionate. That's I just go, that's not. Yeah, that saddens me that our men in society are feeling that barrier to be able to reach out to get help or,
There is a little bit of a nature bias in terms of men are more into doing and women are more into talking.
Yeah.
And women will engage more in a group generally.
Yeah.
And these are just generalisations. And even the ways that men bond, it's more often doing things together than sitting in a group talking.
Yeah.
So I think that natural bias shows up in suicide. They'll just do something about it.
Yeah.
But what they do isn't necessarily ideal.
Yeah. 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 And just as we're wrapping up, what advice would you give to these three different categories of people? First, people who are struggling, how can they reach out? And then 2 is people who are supporting. But 3, there's people who maybe are listening today and they're like, well, I'm not supporting anybody. I've not gone through this yet, but this might be something that, equips them for the future in case they ever encounter this. What would you give advice that you would give to those 3 categories?
Well, I think addressing the last one first.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Melbourne weather. If you don't like it, wait 10 minutes. If you haven't experienced this or know someone who has, wait 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it will happen if you're more than 5 years old, you probably have,
Yeah.
The first question was how you'd advise someone who is going through something.
Yeah.
I think find someone that you feel safe to talk to.
Yeah.
Because you might have a lot of people around you, but you may not feel safe to talk to any of them. Anybody anyone you work with or live with or is in your family has probably hurt you at some stage. Mm-hmm. So when you feel particularly vulnerable, you may not feel safe talking to any of them. But go and find someone that you can feel safe with and test the water a little bit. And if they feel safe with them, then find that up that you need. It'll be out there somewhere.
People who are supporting other people who may be struggling.
Yeah. Look, I think try not to have all the answers, try to ask better questions and ask them what's helpful for them, ask them what's not helpful, ask them what they can do that might make things easier for them and take them seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't say, look, that's not a big deal. I've done that. Or when you may have they may have a different level of vulnerability or more background trauma that's feeding into this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to add for parents as well who are supporting young people who are struggling and especially struggling with some of the more serious and ongoing mental health struggles. It is sometimes very hard as a parent because I'm not personally a parent, but I see the struggles that parents are facing, and it's making sure that they're also being able to debrief and having people that they can share with, and even having professional support themselves, because it is a lot to carry and to be able to have safe people around them as well. So making sure that it's not like in a plane where you say, oh, I've got to put my oxygen mask on before I help somebody else. Making sure that they're also healthy too, I think is really, really important.
I think that's a good idea. Actually, I like that suggestion because, I think having a teenager with a mental health challenge is so stressful for a parent to watch.
Yeah.
Because they feel they're still responsible for that person. They're still sort of financially, physically dependent on them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're out in the world dealing with a whole lot of stuff that the parents may not have dealt with at that little when they were teenagers. It's very stressful and very hard to watch, I think, for parents. And it's hard to not do anything, and if you do something, you're worried about doing the wrong thing. Yeah, it's a tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in the words of Are You Okay? If you are there and you are someone who is supporting someone or who wants to support somebody or just wants some tools up your sleeve to be able to use in the future, the 4 practical steps for Are You Okay is just asking people, are you okay? And being okay to be able to listen, and which is the second point, to listen and to listen without judgment, just to be there for them. And 3rd is to encourage action. You don't have to have all the right answers, like Margaret was saying. Just be there, asking questions and listening, encouraging action, to pointing people to professional help. And then also the 4th is making sure that we're checking in, following up, seeing how that person's doing, making sure that they're okay, because it might be something that they're struggling with, but a couple of weeks later they're not, or maybe they are, and just again, being there to listen, to encourage action. But we have at City Life Church, we have pastors you can talk to and reach out to, life group leaders, but we also have CityLife Community Care, which has professional counselling and psychologists. Do you want to just talk about that just for a little bit? What does CityLife Community Care offer and provide?
Well, there are counsellors, psychologists and social workers. And between that and the church, youth pastors who do an amazing job. And as you say, you've got 2 decades of experience. You've got a lot more experience with young people than I had. So you've got a lot of insights that, counsellors don't know everything. So I think for parents, having someone like you alongside is a great asset. And I think the church has tried really hard to have a very holistic approach to mental health.
Absolutely.
Because, adolescents are so involved socially. They've got a whole classroom and family and outside. There's always different environments they mix in. They can actually be different personalities in each of them. And that can be quite hard for parents to manage. And I think you probably see a pretty good range of things in the generations of adolescents that have gone through. So I think, there's a lot of help out there. It's just a matter of locating what's right for you and what's going to work for you.
Yes, and the beauty of City Life Community Care is that we actually also offer counselling online. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, jump on the website and you can book some online counselling today. Thank you very much, Margaret. Thank you for joining us, and we really hope that this has been helpful for you. Please do not journey alone. We'd love to connect with you, so all the details will be on the screen for you.